Now live from our NFL Nation reporter Jordan Renan, Daniel Jones, a full participant in practice. Coach Pat Shurmur said Jones feels good, trending towards Jones making the start Sunday against the Redskins. Meanwhile, in Jacksonville, Jags owner Shad Khan made the decision to fire Executive VP of Football Operations Tom Coughlin yesterday, 2 days after the NFL Players Association warned players of potentially signing with the franchise because of excessive fines and player grievances. Here is a statement from Shad Khan. I determined earlier this fall that making this move at the conclusion of the 2019 season would be in everyone's best interest. However, in recent days, I reconsidered and decided to make this change immediately. I thank Tom for his efforts not only over the past 3 years, but for all he did from our very first season 25 years ago to put the Jacksonville Jaguars on the map. My expectations and those of our fans for our final 2 games of the 2020 season are high. Here's Doug Marrone.
Obviously, it's a tough situation, and it's never any one person's fault. We're all to blame, for what's going on, during the season. My job is to lead these coaches, and that's what we did, last night, game planning, and, lead these players and do the best job I can for them, to really win these next 2 games. So again, it's a tough situation, but you have to keep your focus, and you have to lead, and you have to go out there and do your job.
Shortly after the news, Jalen Ramsey tweeted his reaction, simply 2 emojis. He, of course, never saw eye to eye with the Jags organization for much of this season, starting with Ramsey, who was starting when he skipped the team's voluntary OTAs back in April. And JoJo, you followed that situation, and now there's this. What's been additional reaction?
Well, I talked to a couple of people on the staff yesterday, and you can almost tell that they really just didn't want to get into it. Like, I'm just trying to keep my head around. I don't know who's coming and who's going right now. And obviously people are concerned about their jobs because, as you noticed in Khan's statement, he really didn't make mention of the head coach either. And so I feel like, you remember how we were talking about the Browns yesterday and sources telling me that Freddie Kitchens needs to have a really strong showing in the last 2 games. It's the same type of tone with head coach Doug Marrone as far as needing to have, strong showing. And as far as, the finding of these players, to excessive amounts. First of all, it's not like it's unexpected because Tom Coughlin had this reputation in terms of being stern on players and what they demand. Victor Cruz can even illuminate more about that when he came from the Giants. I think what is disappointing is that part of what I think added to his defection out of New York was also his handling of Odell Beckham Jr., and that kind of represented where Tom Coughlin is with some of the newer generation players, and to still try to take a lot of that mindset to Jacksonville in a way that obviously didn't work. I mean, you talked about him not jiving with Jalen Ramsey, which really is a euphemism. I mean, that just didn't work, period.
That's an understatement.
It was an understatement. It didn't work, period. And so now to have people considering that in their free agency March when we come up in March as to whether they even want to go there, it's not a good look. A lot of that has fallen apart. And it's really a shame because Tom Coughlin is an upstanding man. He's a great man. He preaches things that any young person in the generations now should know. It's just about whether it works with today's NFL players.
I agree, Josina. It's a shame in a lot of ways because I think there's a lot of value in that wisdom and that experience and all of that. But at the same time, you do have to be willing to adapt and evolve a little bit because it is a different generation. These are younger players, and you do have to be able to communicate effectively or it does fall apart. That's just the way it is.
Yeah, it's just the way it is. And that's one of the things that I think Coach Coughlin didn't have the best grasp of, at least in Jacksonville, is understanding that he has a young nucleus of players there, and you might have to do things a little bit differently in terms of how you, hold them accountable or how you display your level of discipline and how you want things run. So I remember being with Coach Coughlin and understand, I came right into it, right? All the clocks were 5 minutes ahead. Everybody's got to tuck, everybody has to wear suits on the plane. There's things that if you're on time, you're late. If you're, if you're late to a mandatory treatment, you'll get fined. And when you're late, you're getting fined. So it's not just you're late, oh, okay, have a seat, it's cool. You're getting fined. But when he's fining for things, and these are just what I'm hearing, when he's fining for things that aren't mandatory, things that are happening in the offseason, to try and lay that level of discipline down, that's where things kind of go left, because you kind of have to understand that you only can find them for what's within the confines of the football team. And when you start to find them when it's not the appropriate time, that's when you start to lose the relationship in the locker room, and that's when you start to lose players. And on a young team, that could be detrimental to that team. I think what helped Coach Coughlin, at least with us in 07 as well as 2011, both championships that he won with the New York Giants, he had leaders on both of those teams that could help him tell his message to the players in a different voice, right? It's not just him pointing his finger, kind of soften it up a little bit. Guys like Michael Strahan, guys like, Osi Umenyiora, Justin Tuck, those are the same guys that I had in 2011 minus Michael Strahan. But he was able to delegate to those guys what he wanted, and they would be able to relay that to us and soften the blow a little bit, and that's why we were able to come together.
But that was after, and I was just talking to Michael Strahan a couple of days ago, and he was just saying
he went through a learning curve, too.
But that was after they had to tell him, you have to do a better job of showing us that you love us, too. And once he made that concession, then the players like Tuck and Strahan were like, okay, now we understand.
Now we're on board.
Yes.
Nick Saban was here not so long ago. I think we can agree he's old school, right? One of the most successful college coaches out there. And even he said, you would not believe how differently I communicate and how I sell my program today than 10 years ago. I have no choice.
And change with the modern athlete.
Yep.
Yeah.
The modern athlete is so different than what it was 10 years ago, 20 years ago. You can't even compare them. So you just have to change. You have to adapt. If you don't, then you don't even. It's like oil and water. It doesn't mix.
That's why Sean McVay is having so much success in terms of just understanding his players.
Right. Well, still to come on NFL Live, JoJo is here. We've got a piping hot cup of Joe, and we need it because it is very cold. The Cowboys and Eagles are ready, we think, for their showdown. We'll talk about that, plus what's going on around the league.
Oh, my God. What is that?
Is that
my Beyonce wind in my hair?
Oh, no.
Making the playoffs is always a part of the season, but I think for us, it's all about playing for championships.
We got a tall task ahead of us. This is what this team is built for. We've been winning all year. We've been pretty dominant all year.
It's about time to finally get that respect.
And to be just hard-nosed, blue collar, just fighting.
We're here and we're not going anywhere.
Taking a look at the AFC playoff picture, the Patriots and Bills will battle it out for the AFC East. Houston on top of the AFC South with 2 games to go, while the Titans are currently on the outside looking in because the Steelers hold the tiebreaker edge for that second wild card spot. The Ravens can clinch the top seed with a win next Sunday in Cleveland. Here is Mike Reese on the Patriots.
Wendy, it might be week 16 of the regular season, but the Patriots are treating it like week 1 of the playoffs. Check out the end of Bill Belichick's news conference a couple of hours ago when I asked him about the urgency around the team.
Stephon Gilmore said the other day this is like a playoff game, and I'm just curious from what you've seen from the players and your staff throughout the organization, are you sensing that urgency of a playoff game?
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. That's what we're here for. Yep, you work all year to put yourself in a position of, playing a game like this where you can win the division. So that's, couldn't say that in week 4 or week 6 or week 8, whatever it was. Well, we're saying that now, so now's the time for us to play and coach our best football.
It is so cold here that when Belichick arrived for his news conference, he asked reporters, are you thawed out? But true to form, Belichick had the players practicing outside today. They were out on the game field. Wendy?
Mike, thank you. Yes, it is definitely not warm. That is for sure the case as we say hello from our Domino's pregame headquarters, and we'll start with this Patriots offense. We've talked often about their offensive struggles outside of Julian Edelman. Who needs to step up?
Well, I'm looking directly at N'Keal Harry. I mean, this is a time where, we always have a saying, after week 8, halfway through the season, you are no longer a rookie. You have to now pick up the slack now with some injuries, and your number's now being called. So you have to be ready when your number's called. You have to understand what your obligation is when your number's called. And when you have the ball in your hands, you have to go out there and make plays. And there is no team that needs a playmaker right now offensively than the New England Patriots, that offensively they just haven't been the offense that we're used to seeing, that high-powered, guys flying around everywhere, getting the football, getting into the end zone. They just haven't been that this year. Yes, they're still a 10-win team, and we'll see them in the playoffs, and we'll see how that shapes out. But they need to figure out how to get themselves going offensively, and I think N'Keal Harry could be the start of that.
Let's not forget the last time these two teams played, the Patriots won, but it was close, and the Bills turned the ball over 4 times. So it could have gone in any different direction. Foxborough, though, a very different place to play, but what do the Bills have to do to be successful this weekend?
Well, you can't turn the football over. And then
number one.
In that football game, their quarterback went out. Allen went out with an injury. So I'm going to go through a couple plays here. I want to show you last week against the Steelers. One play that cost the Bills and another play that's going to be tough to stop. So in this particular play, let me show you here. They're in 21 personnel. So they got 2 backs and they got a tight end. So I'm thinking, okay, either run the football or some type of play action pass. So let's work through this a little bit, and I want to show you what happens at the top of this. Okay, plenty of time, play action. The front is completely locked up. You got plenty of time to throw the football. I used to practice, before practice, pre-practice, I'd go out with Jimmy G and Tom Brady, and we would throw the football around, and Tom
was a long snapper.
Because I was a long snapper, so I'd go early, and I'd snap a little bit, and Tom would tell me, Rob, high C, get your hand high on the football because it gives you more trajectory so the ball doesn't sail on you. If your arm is low, below your ear, or to your ear, you could sail the football high on a deep pass. So for me, high C. Get a high C on it, and you might have a potential good throw. So when I watch this throw here,
Potentially.
Potentially, when I watch this throw here, it looks like he sees the open receiver, it's an in cut, and maybe rushes a little bit, and the trajectory of his arm is low to his ear. So when I watch this play, it's a high ball. So this should be a completed pass, but it's a turnover. And if you have a turnover versus the Patriots, it's going to cost you, and you probably won't win the football game. So I'm going to show you a different angle here. When you see this play, this should be a throw that any quarterback,
easy throw and catch.
Right here. I mean, that window there is huge. You have plenty of space there. You have plenty of time, and the ball sails on him high, and then the receiver bats it, volleyballs it up in the air, and it's an interception. So you do that, it's not a good thing. I'm going to show you another play that's tough. It's going to be tough on the Patriots versus what they have seen, and the Bills have done a great job of taking the strengths of the quarterback and using that to their advantage. So let me show you this play here. They're low on the 1 yard line, and what they're going to do here is they're going to down block. He's going to pull. He's going to come down. The center is going to pull, which rarely does that happen. Rarely a center pulls, and Bill on the goal line especially says, I will never pull anyone on the goal line because there's always an issue that could come up. And then I'm going to show you this guy right here. This is the key. When you go gun on the goal line here and your quarterback can do this, similar to the Ravens, you add a blocker, an extra blocker. It's 11 on 11. You add an extra blocker in the fullback, so your running back becomes like fullback. You're pulling guys, and look at all this space here for him to go. He's not going to, I mean, he walks in here. He doesn't even have to run. And he's a big guy. He's 6'5", 6'6", 240 pounds. He's a big man. So the Patriots are going to have to do a great job of understanding the Bills are going to come up with a wrinkle. They're going to have some type of wrinkle to where we have to prevent touchdowns and let them kick field goals. If they can kick field goals in the red zone, the Patriots have a better chance of winning this football game. So turnovers and holding them to 3 points in the red zone, that's the key for the Patriots in this football game.
I think it's also overall for the Bills, want to give credit to the job that head coach Sean McDermott has done. I mean, you know, when you think about where they were prior to that, and then also the job that their defensive coordinator Leslie Frazier's done, I think that this is a team that really learned from everything that happened in Cleveland. They went into that game, you know, on a little bit of a high, and then they lost to the Cleveland Browns. And I think that they've really retooled and buckled down on some things since then. So they're playing on this backside of the regular season a lot better than I thought that they would. And so kudos that they're even in this position and had that key win last week to be able to, you know, even get into the playoffs.
I totally agree. And it's been so quiet, right? Because they're in the AFC East, because they're overshadowed by the Patriots, that you just don't hear a lot. Not a lot of folks buying into Buffalo. If they go into Foxborough and get this win, we'll have no choice.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
Which I believe they will, but we'll get to that later.
We'll get to that.
Of course you would. Of course. Of course.
I actually said the same thing yesterday, Rob. I have to own it.
That later.